Hello and welcome to another episode of Cowbells and Conversations. My name is Allison Clark, and I am so thrilled to kick off 2021 with this guest. So I love social media because you get inspired by different posts, and I love ESPN because they highlight so many positive athletes. So this year, one of my most inspiring stories was our next guest. After I watched this piece, I had tears in my eyes, and I was so inspired for what else we can do. Please help me welcome my guest, Cliff Devries. Woo! Yay, Cliff!
Thank you, Allison. It's an honor to be here. Wow, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, welcome. So you are from New York, right?
Yes.
So tell us about your family, because you have a daughter and some sons. So tell us about your family.
Sure. Well, me and my wife, we've been married for 11 years, and we have a 9-year-old daughter. She has 3 boys from a previous marriage. And so I raised them, and now they're out of their house, and they're doing their own thing, but still raising my 9-year-old daughter and taking her to school. And she's a joy and a delight.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Good. Yeah, I have 2 daughters too. And most of the time, it's a delight. But
Sure, most of the time.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. So when I watched this piece of on ESPN, and when you and I connected, I said, how did they find you? And then also the original story was your happy birthday dive. So let's just tell people, if you could just introduce yourself, just give them kind of a 101 on your story. I am going to link the ESPN story to this so people can watch it.
Great.
Tell us, kind of bring us back, and then tell us about your happy birthday dive that really sparked millions of people finding out about your story.
Sure. Well, so there's kind of a chain of events. I have a friend who has a friend who's a reporter. Mm-hmm. And so she wanted to do a story on my recovery and also on this dive that I did every year. So I have a really hard time walking, and it's really difficult for me to just do basic activities. But every year on my birthday, I climb up the 3-meter ladder, which is about 10 feet high, and I dive off a 10-foot diving board. And so she did this story on me, and the newspaper came in and did a little video. And the video went viral with over 235 million views. And then ESPN contacted me a month or so later and said, we'd like to do a story on this. And so when you do your birthday dive next year, we're going to come in and do it. And so ESPN, they came in with a crew, and they're a fantastic, amazing crew. Just their technical ability and their artistic ability is just phenomenal. Oh, ESPN really is a class act. And
did you say that he won an award for your piece?
So he was nominated for an Emmy. He did not win the Emmy, but there's only 5 in that category that were nominated.
Wow.
So he was one of the 5 nominated for an Emmy for that piece. And again, that goes to his artistic work. Has nothing to do with my ability on screen, but he's just
oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just telling your story. So, in a nutshell, your story is so inspiring, and they start off when you're 17 years old, diving. So would you tell us just kind of your story? And then also, I was so inspired by your power of your vision and mindset. And then I also want to talk about your vision as a diver, and then also how you coach people. But tell people your story, how you got into diving, and then what happened.
Sure. Well, when I was really young, we had a little community pool that we went to. And I remember all I wanted to do was go off the diving board. I didn't even know how to swim yet. And so my parents, they taught me how to swim just so I could go off the diving board.
Like, and how old are you at this time?
I was 5.
Okay.
4 going on 5. And so learned how to swim. And then I was just on the diving board in that community pool every summer from sun up until sundown, and just diving and diving and diving. And I enjoyed other things as well. I didn't know that there was really a place where you could dive in high school, that they had high school diving. And a friend of mine, when I was a freshman in high school, said, "Hey, let's go out for the diving team." I said, "No, I haven't had any instruction. I don't know what I'm doing. I just play around." And he said, "Well, they'll teach you there." And so I ended up diving in high school with an amazing coach. His name's Dick Young. And
Is this in New York?
Yeah, this is in Rochester, New York.
All right.
And so he taught me everything to get up to the point where I was an All-American for my junior and my senior year. I was ranked in the top 30 in the country. And then, at that point, I had progressed very quickly, and I was really excited. And I thought I had a chance to go to Olympic trials and maybe make the Olympic team. Now looking back, I'm not sure how realistic that was, but at that time, I really thought I had a chance.
Oh yeah.
And then I got a scholarship to the University of Kentucky for diving, and started there. And then I started feeling weakness in my shoulder, and I wasn't able to do my arm circles, the swing to jump off the board correctly, and things just started falling apart. And then so I ended up losing my scholarship, dropped out of school.
So what year are you at this point?
So this is after one semester of school.
One semester. Okay.
Freshman. Yeah.
Got it.
And so I was not there very long at all. And then went back, lived in Utah for a year, went on a mission for 2 years. And because I wasn't using my shoulder as much, as, I wasn't doing any of the type of diving activities, it didn't really bother me too much. Near the end of my mission, it was quite difficult. I got back and I thought for sure I had a pinched nerve or something was wrong. I went into the MRI, and when I was in the MRI, I was joking around with the tech and I said, "Hey, how's everything coming out? Those pictures coming out well?" And they ran over inside, they pulled me out, and I saw this look of terror on their face. And at that point, I knew something was horribly wrong. And, I was just joking around there, but they looked horribly terrified. They finished taking taking the scans, and they told me later on that they found a large lesion, a large tumor. And my parents sat me down later that night and said that I was going to die. And so the next morning I went in to talk to the neurosurgeon, and he said, well, there is one option that you have. And it's really the only option that you have to live. The other one is this tumor is going to grow into your brain and you'll die. And so the one option they gave me was to go down to New York City and to get surgery from a doctor named Fred Epstein. And he was kind of a pioneer in doing surgery on the spinal cord and right near the brainstem. And he was able to remove the tumor. But during the surgery, I was paralyzed from the neck down. And so I had no ability to move anything. After the scarring and the swelling went down, I was able to regain motion with my left side. And so I have motor movement with my left side, but reduced sensation. My right side is pretty well paralyzed with very limited motion at all.
And you're 21 at this time, correct?
Correct. I was 21.
Okay. Yep.
And and I was on a lot of medications, and I wasn't able to walk. I was in a wheelchair. And then I remember laying down on the floor of my parents' house and not being able to move. And I just thought, I'm sick of this. I don't want to live like this. I'm tired of not having any options. And I decided at that point, I'm going to make something of my life. I'm going to do something with myself. I'm not just going to sit here and be paralyzed with nothing I could do. And then I decided to reduce and eliminate the medications they had me on. And I started working and stretching and doing everything I could to learn how to walk again. And I was very lucky that I had a small sliver of my spinal cord, which was still operational, still functional. And so it was able to get up and get me back on my feet, and just barely enough strength to walk. And it's not a pretty walk, but I am able to walk. And so I was able to get a job at Rochester Institute of Technology as a diving coach. And then I started up a diving club. And then we did very well, and we won the last 3 national championships for the AAU diving nationals. So, yeah, it's been a long road, but it's finally where I want to be.
Wow. And so I remember reading years ago about divers visualizing, what they do. They see the dive before they go off into the diving board. Is that correct? You kind of visualize what you're going to be doing?
Yeah. So the higher level divers, that's what we train them to do, to be able to visualize the exact motions, movements, and feelings that they're going to be able to do when they do the dive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When I worked with Dale Carnegie, I was with them for 16 years before I started my company. When we would teach people the vision statement, we would do that exact thing. It's like you visualize yourself doing that and you can experience it. And what do you smell and see? And I've done that since I was in my 20s, just setting a clear vision, having really concrete goals to make that happen. When you were laying on the floor and just telling yourself, like, I am going to walk, did you visualize yourself walking, or how did your brain... I know that your brain obviously has a huge influence on who you are today, but how did that visualization help you?
Well, I think there's a bunch of different levels that visualization works, at least for me and the way that we train our divers. Number one is to be able to see the big picture, like you say, to be able to say, okay, this is where I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do. But also that visualization helps you break it down into little tiny parts, which is the next step. And I knew that I wasn't going to just stand up right there from my parents' floor and be able to walk.
Right.
I knew that I was going to have to, all right, I'm going to have to start moving my toes. I'm going to have to start having to stretch out my legs, which are constantly tight from not moving. And then those little things that would go on to be larger and larger items until you're finally walking. And, I wasn't sure. I mean, there's so many people who are paralyzed who there's no connection there. Luckily, I did have a little bit of a connection with my spinal column and my spine.
Right. Yeah. And that's so relevant. When I watched the video on ESPN, it put it in perspective, as we start to look at 2021 and like what is possible, what's your advice for people as far as visualizing what's possible, but then also I want to hear your insights about your coaching and mentoring, because I know in 2020, I listened to a lot of podcasts and read articles about how that's missing because the office environment doesn't have that mentorship and coaching. So what advice would you give people to keep in touch and really encourage people, as well as start to look at 21 in a different way? Because your story and your perspective is so positive. I know you work really hard to get there. But what would you tell people who aren't necessarily divers, but just overall, what can we do to make 2021, even I love it's like you have so much more than you think you do, like there's so much more. I'm rephrasing what you said, but like there's so much more in us that we know.
Sure. Well, so for 2021, I think you're exactly right that having a clear vision of what you'd like to do and all the parts, all the steps that it's going to take to get there. For example, with our club, we are building up into new satellites, so bringing in new pools in. And so the visualization that I have and work with my coaches is, okay, we need to be at this level with our training and with our instruction with the coaches. We need to have these type of conversations with the pool owners to be able to make sure that we can do the training with them. And we've got to be able to bring in these type of kids so that they're dedicated and motivated to keep on diving. And so bringing in those parts into the visualization for 2021, having some real solid goals, as well as, the picture in our head of where we want to go. And then using that type of collaboration, making sure that everybody's on the same page with the vision, because if I'm seeing a diving club with 20 kids and they're seeing a diving club with 3, they're going to be all excited when they get their third one. And I'm going to be going, you've got 17 more to go. Right. So having that collaboration and everybody on the same vision and having them work together and be excited about that same vision, I think that is what's going to make the difference this next year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So clear communication, collaboration. And then as far as the last topic is just your mentorship and coaching, what would you encourage people to? I mean, if you think about all the lives that you've changed since you become a coach, I mean, you probably don't stop and reflect as much as you should, but I'm sure there's hundreds of people, that you and millions who have seen your story. But what should people remember as far as like their own power to mentor and coach as we go into 2021?
Well, yeah, I think that we are operating on a very low percentage of what our personal ability is. So many times we're thinking, you know what, I've done all I can, but there's more. There's more to each one of us. I say in the video and I say all the time, when you look in the mirror, there's always more. You've got more to you. And so one of the things that 2020 has taught all of us is, we have to be creative in what we're doing and be able to change and adapt to the situations that we have. A quick story here. I don't want to drag on too long, but we didn't have a pool. We didn't have anywhere to go. They closed down our dryland facility with our trampolines and our diving boards. And so we were doing these Zoom classes and I'm telling the kids, all right, jump up on your couches, jump off your couches. And I hear in the background, all the parents go, what are you doing? Why are you jumping on the couch? Our coach is telling us to. And so, being able to change and adapt and be creative, that's what we've learned. That's something that was inside of us. But it took a pandemic to be able to show us that, we can do things differently. We can make things work in a different way. And so that's the message that I want to leave with everyone.
I love that. Well, that is the cowbell idea. So it's really to know that we have so much more potential in us. And I also loved your piece about collaboration as we start to go into 2021. Communicate with all different parts of your company to make sure everyone's on the same page, and then just realize your impact that we have as well as your creativity. So thank you so much for making time to join the Cowbells and Conversations. When people want to get in touch with you, and I know also you're creating a really cool software program for diving, but tell us a little bit about that, but also how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, people can get in touch with me through email. So upstatediving.com is our club. And that basically has where they can go to find out information about the diving club and about me. And about what we do at Upstate Diving. That's probably going to be the best way. Okay. As far as mentoring and taking care of others, I think that that's something that we can take a look at and see. Okay, who's close to me that needs a hand, that needs some help, and reach out to them and just a good conversation. So much about mentoring is just building that friendship first.
For sure. Yeah. And also just being more compassionate this year. So I love that. Just like figuring out who really needs us. Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining, and you are awesome. Woo! You inspired me. You were one of my highlights of 2020, to see you and meet you. So thank you so much for getting us all to think differently about what else is possible. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Allison.